What if I told you that there was a place worse than hell? A place so terrifying, so unimaginably dark, that even death itself seems like paradise by comparison. Welcome to Tartarus, ancient Greek's maximum security prison where gods sent their worst offenders for all eternity. I'm Alex Arnold, and you're watching Arnie's Brain Train, where it's my goal to make history hit different. Today, we're going to be diving into the darkest pits of Greek mythology, meeting its most notorious inmates, and learning why this underworld prison makes modern jail cells look like 5-star hotels. Our sources are listed in the description for all of you mythology buffs out there. Now buckle up, grab your headlamp, this is about to get dark. Before we meet our prisoners, let's get our bearings and understand what Tartarus was. In Greek mythology, pretty much everybody went to the regular underworld that was known as Hades. Not a great vacation spot, but manageable. Now, Tartarus, on the other hand, that was an entirely different place set aside for punishment specifically. The entrance to Tartarus was said to be a pit that was so deep it would take 9 days just to fall to the bottom. A place wrapped in 3 layers of night, surrounded by a bronze wall, and guarded by monsters that would make your worst nightmares look cuddly. This was no ordinary prison. This is where the gods sent those who committed crimes so terrible that even death wasn't punishment enough. According to Hesiod's Theogony, one of our oldest sources on Greek mythology, Tartarus was as far beneath the earth as heaven was above. It was literally the bottom of creation, the cosmic basement where gods threw the trash that they never wanted to see again. Tartarus was the true definition of hell. If you ended up here, there was no parole board, no time off for good behavior, just eternal punishment tailored to fit your specific crimes. Aside from being an incredible glimpse into ancient Greek ideas of justice and punishment, these myths have shaped our culture in ways you might not realize. From modern fantasy novels to blockbuster movies, the concept of specialized eternal punishment shows up everywhere. Plus, it's a pretty effective way to make your kids behave. Finish your homework or you'll end up like Sisyphus. Now, let's meet our first inmate. First up in our gallery of Tartarus All-Stars is Sisyphus, king of Corinth and possibly the slipperiest trickster in all of Greek mythology. Sisyphus wasn't your average king. He was renowned for his extraordinary intelligence and cunning, a master manipulator who could talk his way out of anything. But like many clever people, he thought he was smarter than everyone, including the gods. His crimes? It's hard to know where to even start. He revealed divine secrets, betrayed Zeus by ratting him out to a river god, and he murdered travelers to his kingdom. But his most infamous crime was cheating death twice. When Thanatos, the personification of death, not Thanos from the popular Marvel movies, came to claim him, Sisyphus somehow managed to trick death itself and chain him up. With death temporarily out of commission, nobody on Earth could die. Warriors would be stabbed in battle and just not die. Can you even imagine the chaos? Zeus eventually forced Sisyphus to release Thanatos, but our crafty king had a backup plan. Before being dragged to the underworld, he instructed his wife not to perform proper funeral rites. No coins for the ferrymen, no burial, nothing. This created a loophole that allowed him to convince Hades to let him return to the surface temporarily to arrange his funeral. Once back in the sunlight, Sisyphus simply refused to return until he was forcibly dragged back. The gods were not amused. For his repeated defiance of divine law and cheating death itself, Sisyphus received a punishment that perfectly fit his crime. He was condemned to push a massive boulder up a steep hill for all eternity. Each time he neared the top, the boulder would roll back down, forcing him to start over, forever. It was the ultimate exercise in futility. Endless effort with zero results. For a man who prided himself on his cleverness, being trapped in a pointless, unsolvable task was truly hell. So next time you're struggling with a repetitive task that feels like it never ends, remember Sisyphus. At least your boulder probably has wheels. Now, if you think your family dinners get awkward, wait until you hear about Tantalus. Tantalus started out with an incredible advantage in life. He was a favorite of the gods, regularly invited to feast at their table on Mount Olympus. Imagine having Zeus, Hera, and the whole divine crew as your drinking buddies. This wasn't just a social flex, it was an extraordinary honor almost no mortals ever received. But Tantalus couldn't just enjoy his good fortune. No, he had to push his luck in the most horrific way possible. First, he stole ambrosia and nectar, the food and drink of the gods, and shared these divine secrets with his mortal friends. Then, he tried to test the gods' omniscience by serving them the most disgusting meal in mythological history: his own son, Pelops, whom he murdered, chopped up, and cooked into a stew. Now, the gods, being gods, immediately recognized what was in the pot and were utterly horrified. All except Demeter, who, distracted by grief over her missing daughter, absent-mindedly ate a shoulder bite before realizing the truth. Don't worry, they later brought Pelops back to life with an ivory shoulder to replace the missing piece. Tantalus' punishment in Tartarus was a masterpiece of ironic torture. He was placed in a pool of water under a fruit tree, but whenever he reached for the fruit, the branches would just move beyond his grasp. Whenever he bent to drink, the water would recede just before his lips could reach it. So he remained for eternity, tantalizingly close to relief, but forever unable to satisfy his hunger or thirst. In fact, his punishment was so iconic that we still use the word tantalize today to describe something desirable that remains just out of reach. So what can we learn from Tantalus? Well, apart from don't serve your children to the gods, which hopefully isn't relevant advice for most of you, his story reminds us about the dangers of taking relationships for granted. Tantalus had it made: divine friends, heavenly feasts, and threw it all away through betrayal and hubris. Our next Tartarus VIP is Ixion, another king who seriously misunderstood the concept of guest privileges. Ixion's story is a masterclass in how not to repay kindness. His trouble started when he married Dia, daughter of Dionysus, but refused to pay the bride price he'd promised. When his father-in-law came to collect, Ixion pretended to make peace, invited him over, and then pushed him into a pit of burning coals. Yikes. Now, in ancient Greece, this was more than just murder. It was a violation of sacred guest-host relationships and family bonds, one of the worst crimes in Greek culture. Ixion became an outcast, polluted by his crime, with no one willing to perform the religious purification ritual he needed. Zeus, showing remarkable compassion, actually took pity on Ixion. He not only purified him of his crime, but he invited him to Mount Olympus as a guest. Second chance of a lifetime, right? So, how does Ixion show his gratitude? By lusting after Zeus's wife, Hera. Zeus, being a god, suspects what's happening and creates a cloud shaped exactly like Hera, called Nephele, as a test. Ixion immediately tried to seduce the fake Hera, confirming his betrayal. From this strange union was born the race of centaurs, half-human, half-horse beings that became symbols of unbridled passion and chaos. As punishment for his astounding ingratitude and betrayal, Ixion was bound to a fiery wheel in Tartarus, constantly spinning for all eternity. Every revolution brought new agony, with no break, no rest, and no end in sight. Ixion's story shows us something powerful about ancient Greek values. Even the king of gods was willing to forgive a terrible crime, but betraying that forgiveness was unforgivable. It's a reminder that sometimes our second chances are our most important ones. Now, if you're enjoying this journey through the ancient Greek underworld, make sure you hit that subscribe button. I release new videos every week that make learning about history, mythology, and ancient cultures as exciting as your favorite thriller. And don't forget to ring that notification bell so you never miss an episode of Arnie's Brain Train. Let's rewind the mythological clock back even further to meet Tartarus' original tenants and my personal favorites, the Titans. Before Zeus and the Olympians ruled the cosmos, there was actually a different divine dynasty in charge, the Titans, led by Kronos. These weren't just any gods, but they were primordial forces of nature, massive and incredibly powerful beings who shaped the very foundations of the universe. The Titans were the children of Uranus, the sky god, and Gaia, the earth goddess, making them literally the offspring of the cosmos itself. They included Kronos and Rhea, first parents of the Olympians, Oceanus, the world-encircling river, Hyperion, father of the sun, moon, and dawn, and many others. For generations, they ruled unchallenged, until Kronos received a prophecy that his children would overthrow him, just as he had overthrown his own father. So his solution? Swallow each of his children whole as soon as they were born. Family counseling wasn't big in ancient Greece. But Rhea, tired of losing all her babies, hid newborn Zeus and tricked Kronos into swallowing a stone instead. When Zeus grew up, he forced Kronos to regurgitate his siblings and declared war on the Titans. This epic conflict, called the Titanomachy, raged for 10 years. Think about battles that split mountains, storms that boiled seas, and cosmic forces clashing across heaven and earth. The Olympians, led by Zeus and armed with lightning bolts, fought against the raw strength and power of the Titans. With the help of the 100-handed giants and the Cyclops, Zeus and his siblings eventually triumphed. But now what to do with these defeated but still incredibly powerful beings? The solution? Imprison them in Tartarus, bound with unbreakable chains and guarded by the 100-handed giants. There they remained, symbols of the old order overthrown by the new. Not all Titans were imprisoned though. Those who supported Zeus or stayed neutral, like Prometheus, until his own crime of giving fire to humans, Epimetheus and Oceanus avoided punishment. The Titan myth gives us insight into how ancient cultures explained cosmic transitions of power and the ordering of the universe. It's a tale of generational conflict that resonates even today. The old guard versus the new, tradition versus revolution. Plus, now if you've ever wondered why Saturn, the Roman name for Kronos, is often depicted as an old man with a scythe, now you know. It's a reminder of the fallen Titan king, overthrown by his children and imprisoned in the depths of Tartarus. Well folks, thanks for joining me, and that concludes our tour of ancient Greece's cosmic maximum security prison and its most notorious inmates. From Sisyphus with his endless boulder pushing to the Titans bound in eternal chains, Tartarus represented the Greeks' ultimate conception of justice, punishments perfectly tailored to fit the crime, lasting for all eternity. These myths are windows into how ancient people understood cosmic justice, divine power, and the consequences of human arrogance. When we read about Tantalus reaching for water he can never drink, or Ixion spinning on his fiery wheel, we're connecting with ideas that shaped Western civilization for thousands of years. Thanks for joining me so much. If you enjoyed this journey into the darkest corners of Greek mythology, smash that like button and subscribe to Arnie's Brain Train for more adventures through history, science, religion, and mind-blowing mysteries. Check out my sources in the description below if you want to dive deeper into these fascinating myths. Now remember, the world isn't always this simple, but it's always this interesting. Until next time, this is Alex Arnold reminding you that compared to pushing a boulder uphill for eternity, your Monday morning doesn't look so bad after all. See you guys next time. Bye.